You ever made a decision that didn't feel like yours? Like buying something, saying yes to something, or even believing something, and later, you can't quite explain why. You may have just been manipulated, and you didn't even know it. Welcome to the world of invisible puppeteers, the people, platforms, and systems that subtly pull your strings every single day. Dark psychology starts where your awareness ends. Take this. Studies in behavioral psychology show that people are more likely to agree to a request if it feels like it was their idea. That's not an accident. That's covert manipulation. Think of a salesman who lets you decide which product is best, but only after narrowing your options to the two he wants you to pick from. You feel in control, but he set the stage. He's guiding your choices without direct pressure. This trick is used in politics, marketing, relationships, even job interviews. It's called choice architecture, and it's one of the most effective forms of influence because it hides in plain sight. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt tense, even though no one said a word? Or found yourself suddenly irritated after spending time with someone who was angry? That's not a coincidence. That's emotional contagion. Psychologists define emotional contagion as the automatic transfer of moods and emotions between people. It's unconscious, it's fast, and it's incredibly powerful. Here's the dark part. Manipulators use this against you. In high-pressure environments, like sales calls, political rallies, or even toxic relationships, people project intense emotions to infect your emotional state. They want you rushed, fearful, or overexcited, because when you're emotionally hijacked, you're easier to persuade. Studies show that when someone fakes confidence or urgency, others will often mirror that emotion, even if the situation doesn't call for it. You start buying into feelings that aren't even yours. And the worst part? The more empathetic you are, the more vulnerable you are to it. It's not just about protecting your mind anymore. You have to guard your emotions too. Great, let's dive into the third subheading, scarcity trap. Why you chase what you can't have. Imagine this. You're shopping online, and you see a red banner. Only 2 items left in stock. Suddenly, you feel an urge to buy, fast. You weren't even sure you wanted it before, but now it feels urgent. Necessary. That's the scarcity trap. A psychological manipulation tactic rooted deep in human evolution. In 1975, researchers Weichel, Lee, and Adewole conducted a famous experiment using jars of cookies. One jar had 10 cookies, the other only 2. People consistently rated the cookies in the jar with only 2 as more valuable and desirable, even though all the cookies were exactly the same. Why? Because our brains associate scarcity with value. This is why marketers use limited-time offers, influencers hype, exclusive drops, and manipulators withdraw affection to make you chase it harder. Scarcity makes your brain shift from logic to survival mode. It tricks you into thinking that what's rare must be worth more, even when it's not. Recognizing the scarcity trap helps you pause and choose value over urgency. You've probably said yes to something small and then found yourself roped into something much bigger. It starts with, "Can I ask you a quick favor?" Before you know it, you're deep in a commitment you never agreed to. That's not just bad luck. It's a textbook case of the foot-in-the-door effect. Psychologists Jonathan Friedman and Scott Fraser proved this in 1966. They asked homeowners to place a tiny sticker in their window supporting safe driving. 2 weeks later, they asked the same group to install a massive billboard on their lawn for the same cause. A staggering number agreed, just because they'd said yes to the first, harmless request. Why does it work? Because your brain wants to stay consistent. Once you say yes to something, even small, your mind starts to see yourself as someone who supports that cause, or that person. Manipulators know this. They start with something harmless, a question, a free sample, a favor, and then escalate. By the time you realize what's happening, you're already invested. And the deeper you're in, the harder it is to pull out. You've seen the sad puppy eyes in charity ads, the trembling voice of a friend asking, "After all I've done for you?" Or the button that says, "No thanks, I don't care about hungry children." That's not persuasion. That's emotional extortion, and it's powered by the guilt switch. Guilt is one of the strongest emotional levers in human psychology. It's tied to our identity, our morality, and our need for social acceptance. Manipulators, whether brands, bosses, or toxic people, Flip this switch to make you feel bad for setting boundaries. One study from the Journal of Consumer Research found that shoppers were more likely to donate or buy when guilt was subtly induced, even if the product or cause had no real value to them. They weren't convinced. They were coerced. The guilt switch turns your empathy into a weapon, one aimed against you. And once it's activated, saying no feels like doing harm. But here's the truth. Feeling guilty doesn't always mean you're doing something wrong. It often means someone else is doing something manipulative. You're scrolling through reviews. One product has 5 stars and 10,000 ratings. The other? Just 3 reviews, even though it's cheaper and better. Which do you pick? If you're like most people, you go with the crowd. That's social proof, and it's one of the most manipulative psychological forces in your daily life. In 1951, psychologist Solomon Asch conducted a series of now-famous experiments. He placed a subject in a room with actors who intentionally gave wrong answers to obvious visual questions. What happened? Most participants conformed, even when they knew the answers were wrong. Why? Because being part of the group felt safer than being right. Today, this plays out in more advanced forms. Fake followers, staged testimonials, bestseller, tags, paid influencers. It's not about truth anymore. It's about perception. If enough people believe something, or appear to, you're more likely to believe it too. The dark side? You're not being persuaded by facts. You're being socially engineered. And the scariest part? You clearly remember what they said. But now they're telling you, that never happened. You start doubting yourself. Maybe you misunderstood. Maybe you're just being too sensitive. That's not a miscommunication. That's gaslighting. Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation where someone causes you to doubt your memory, perception, or even sanity to gain power over you. The term comes from a 1944 film Gaslight, where a husband manipulates his wife by dimming the lights and denying it, making her question her reality. Modern gaslighters do the same, just with words, tone, and selective memory. They say things like, "You're imagining things. You always overreact. Everyone agrees with me, not you." Over time, the victim starts to trust the manipulator's version of reality more than their own. It's used in abusive relationships, toxic workplaces, and even political propaganda. The danger isn't just psychological, it's neurological. Studies show long-term gaslighting can rewire your brain, making you more dependent, anxious, and submissive. And the worst part? It's often so gradual, you don't realize it until you're deep inside the trap. Would you rather choose a treatment with a 90 survival rate, or one with a 10 chance of death? Logically, they're the same. But emotionally, they feel very different. That's the framing effect at work. It's a powerful psychological bias where the way information is presented, not the facts themselves, alters your judgment and decision-making. Politicians use it to sway public opinion. They don't say tax increases, they say investment in the future. Marketers don't say used, they say pre-loved. In a classic study by Kahneman and Tversky, participants were given 2 choices to combat a disease. One was framed in terms of lives saved, the other in lives lost, even though both options were statistically identical. The framing completely changed which option people chose. Words don't just describe reality, they shape it. Manipulators know how to frame facts to trigger your emotions, push your buttons, and influence your behavior, without ever lying. The truth is, what you hear isn't always what you understand. And what you understand isn't always by accident. Would you shock a stranger with 450 volts, just because someone in a lab coat told you to? In the 1960s, psychologist Stanley Milgram tested this exact scenario. Participants believed they were delivering painful electric shocks to another person. A shocking 65 obeyed the command, even as the victim screamed in agony. Why? Because the instruction came from someone they perceived as an authority. This is the authority illusion, the deep psychological drive to obey those who appear to be in charge. Uniforms, titles, accents, status. They all activate a subconscious bias that tells your brain, trust them, don't question them. It's why we follow instructions from experts without vetting their credentials. Why people fall for scams involving fake police or doctors. And why many won't speak up in boardrooms, classrooms, or even relationships, even when something feels wrong. Manipulators love authority, not because they've earned it, but because it lets them bypass your critical thinking. The more confident they seem, the less likely you are to challenge them. And that's exactly how they get in. Not all manipulation is loud. Some of the most powerful tactics are completely silent. Think about the last time someone ignored your message, left you on read, sat in a meeting, saying nothing, letting you fill the awkward silence. That's not passivity. That's a strategy. Psychologists call this the silence tactic. It leverages your natural discomfort with ambiguity, rejection, or unresolved tension. Manipulators use silence to create uncertainty, so you second-guess yourself, trigger anxiety, so you rush to fix the problem, gain control. By forcing you to speak first, apologize, or concede in negotiations, silence is often used to pressure the other side into revealing more, offering better terms, or caving in. In relationships, it's a form of emotional withholding, a quiet punishment that keeps you chasing validation. The scariest part? The less they say, the more power you give them, without even realizing it. Sometimes, silence isn't absence. It's a weapon. So what do all these tricks have in common? They bypass logic and target emotion. They work not because you're weak, but because you're human. From the subtle push of social proof, to the crippling weight of guilt, to the silent, manipulative pause that makes you squirm. These tactics are used against you daily, in ads, relationships, politics, and conversations. But now, you can spot them. Because the first step to protecting yourself is awareness. When you see the string, the puppet show loses its power. You don't have to become paranoid. You just need to become psychologically fluent, able to recognize when your mind is being played. And once you do that, you take back control. If you found this eye-opening, do this. Subscribe for more powerful insights into psychology, dark persuasion, and the science of human behavior. Hit the like button if you've ever experienced one of these tactics yourself. And share this video, someone you know might need to see it. Your mind is your greatest asset. Protect it.